Hey guys, welcome to this first video on how to create your first Android app. It's just going to be a basic counting app where you can increment, decrease and reset a counter value. Just a great way to learn and get started with Android Studios. So we're just going to run through how to set up Android Studios and get started. So the first thing we need to do is head over to the Android Studio website in our browser and just get hold of the software that we need to start creating apps. First we're going to install Android Studios. Just going to click the download button, accept the license agreement. Once I've gone through this, my browser is just going to ask me if I want to download. So yes, I'll allow my browser to download from the website, and we'll just wait for this to download. Cool, so once this is downloaded, I'm just going to double click on this, and on Apple it's going to give me the option to copy the application to my application folder. On Windows you'll be given a Windows executable to install, so I'm just going to copy this across to my applications folder. Once this is completed, I'll then find this under my Launchpad. So if I just go into Launchpad, we'll be able to see that there. Okay, now I'm just going to open up Android Studios for the first time and just run through the configuration. This will probably take a few minutes, so I'm just going to allow the application to start. And the first thing that I'm going to do is be asked if I want to import any settings. I don't have this installed on another machine, so I'm just going to accept that and just let this fire up. I'll send these statistics to Google, let them improve the product. And the first thing I'm going to do is be presented what type of layout. So I'm just going to accept standard. I'm going to accept the dark mode. Just go next and finish. This is just going to run through the initial setup. So this will take a couple of minutes, so we'll just come back once that's completed. During the install, I was asked for permissions to install Intel's hardware acceleration management tool. So I've just put in my password to allow that. I'm just going to allow the security to complete the install. Just go into my security and privacy, sign into here or just unlock. I'm just going to use my fingerprint and allow that to go through, and we'll be able to just complete the final parts of the installation process. Perfect, so the installation's now finished and we've been presented the welcome screen, and we can actually start our first application. So I'm just going to select an empty activity and click next. This will basically just fire up a blank project and give us an initial class to work from and an initial layout to build from. So we'll just go next, and the first thing I'll do is give my application a name. Then the next part is the package name. So this really should follow your domain name. So I'm just going to leave this as com.example.clicker, but you'd actually use your own domain name in here. The next part is the saved location. So I'm just going to choose a slightly different location to the default. I like all my projects to be in one place. I'm just going to create a new folder called projects, create that, and then open the directory, and we'll just give it the name of Clicker. I'm going to keep the language support at Kotlin, and then I'm going to choose the minimum API level. So this actually gives us how many devices in the wild we can actually support. So running API 15 or Android 4, we supported 100. As we change this, we support less and less devices. So if you're looking for hardware or support that's in newer versions of Android, you may need to change this setting. And as you support newer and newer versions, you're going to support less and less devices. But I'm going to leave that at the default, so we support all 100%. Then we've got the project will support instant apps. So this gives us the ability to allow people to not install the app, but still run portions of the app. So you might have a real estate website, and someone might click on the link to view the property on their app. You don't have it installed, but you can still view the property on the app without actually installing it. Something that we'll probably cover in a later video, but for this we can leave this unchecked, and we're just going to click finish. This will actually then start creating all the files, and it will start building the project. Just close that window, we don't need that. And so this could take a few minutes, so we'll come back once that's done. Okay, so our project's finished building. On the left hand side we've got our files that make up our application. We've got the main activity.kt file that will be where our business logic actually goes, and then we've got the activity main.xml, which is our layout view. So let's go into text, where we've got the preview on. Okay, let's just start. I'll just bring this onto a new line. Okay, so it's given us a starting point for constraint layout. Constraint layout just gives us flexibility of placing objects without actually having to know the size of the screen resolution, and it's just going to adapt for different size screens. I'm going to start with the text view, so I'm just going to set the text size. We'll put this at 70 SP. You're going to come across different ways to size objects. SP will be used for font, and that stands for scale independent pixels, or scale independent, and it just means that the users can actually alter the size of the fonts based on their device settings. You will also come across DP, which is density independent pixels, and you generally use that for things like buttons and for sizing other objects, and it just means that you can size objects independent of the screen resolution, because different devices run different resolutions. Okay, so the next thing I'm actually going to do is change the text. So let's set this to 0, because that's where our counter is going to start. The next thing I want to do is give this an ID, so I'll give this at ID/value. So this is how I'm actually going to identify this component on the screen. So the next thing is just giving us a warning that we're actually using a straight value in here. So I'm actually going to use option return. I think it's control return on Windows, and extract this to a string resource. So basically I'll just give this a name of count_value. So this is a way of extracting all our strings from the application into a separate resource file, so we could actually translate the file if needed. So this value is the at string /count_value is actually going to be under res values and under the strings file. So we can see here that we've actually got an entry here for count_value with a value of 0. So that way we could actually create different string.xml files for different languages, and it will be translated as we were to release our app in different countries, if that's something that you need to do, but that's just a recommendation to actually do that. So let's actually set the background. So I'm just going to put in #FFF, just so we get a white square on the left hand side. So this just indicates the value that's currently set. I'm going to click on this and bring up the color options, and I could actually just select the color on the side, but I'm just going to select the slate blue from the bottom. So that will just give us the background color. Now I'm going to update the text to white, so let's just choose color here, and we'll set this to the #FFF value, so it just stands out from the background. The next thing that I'm actually going to do is add some buttons. So let's just go to a new line and add in a button element, and I'm going to set this to 75 dp. So this is the other sizing option, dp as in density, independent density pixel. So 75 by 75. And I'm just going to actually correct the position of the button. At the moment we've got a warning that it's going to pop to the top left to run this application. So to do this we can actually do this in the preview window. So we've actually got the points at the sides, so with the constraint layout we could actually use these. So I'm just actually going to make the size of this slightly bigger. So let's just grab this one on the left, and we're just going to drag that down onto the side, so we can see here that it's actually updating the code for us. Pull this one across, So we can actually see these two are now blue, and it's pinned to the side. So we've actually got these lines that we can see in the preview window, and we can actually see that it's updated our code here with the layout constraint start to start of, and the constraint top to bottom of the ID value, which is our text view. So we can actually see how these items are actually lined up within our preview, and actually positions the buttons. So I'm just going to also select this one on the right and drag this across so it's also centered in the center of our layout. Okay, so I actually want some round buttons. So to do this, I'm just going to create a new drawable. So drawable resource file. Let's call this round underscore button, and then just click OK. So this gives us a new XML file to create a new shape. So let's just change this to shape. So we're basically just describing what kind of shape that we want to create through this file. So the next thing that I need to do here is create a new shape attribute. So let's just go to a new line and give this a value of oval. So shape oval. And then we want to give this a color. So on a new line, we're actually going to choose a solid color, and we're going to set this to white initially, just so we get the color picker on the left hand side. So like before, I'm just going to click on the color selector, and again I could just choose the color from the top. I could select it through here, but I'm just going to choose the green from the bottom for this example. So once I've created this file, I'll just save this, go back to the activity.xml, and I'm going to set this file as the background for the button. So this will create us a nice round button with the color green. And I'm just going to duplicate this 3 times. So we've got 3 different buttons, one to increment, one to reset, and another one to decrease the values. So the next thing I actually want to do is give all these items an ID so we can identify each one of these. So the first one we'll just set this to add, then we'll set the middle one to reset, and then the last one we'll call that minus. So let's just finish that one, and we'll just create the last one, and we'll set that to minus so that we can decrease the value just in case that we increment it too quickly. Okay, so once that's done, the next thing I need to actually do is space out these buttons. So if I just highlight this and then press the command click, likely control click on Windows, I can just remove these constraints so that I can just set the buttons to actually move to the left and right of the reset button in the middle. And then what I'll do is I'll actually start to position the elements that we've got on the screen. So to actually lay out the elements on the screen, what I'll actually do is I'll start giving some of these elements margins, because we just want to put some space between all these objects. So the first thing that I'll do is do the text view, and I'm going to set the margin bottom, and let's set the margin bottom to 70 dp. So this is just going to shift the element up, because what it's actually going to do is place the margin at the bottom of the constraint rather than actually right underneath the object. So that's just going to push this object slightly higher up. The next thing I'm going to do is put a margin on the buttons. So let's just copy that and paste that under the first button. And I'm going to set this to padding top. So it actually just pushes the gap between the text and the buttons. So I'm just going to paste that on all 3 buttons. And the next thing I actually want to do is space out or bring these buttons in. So to do that, again, all I actually need to do is click on these buttons and use the toggles to actually pull the constraint in to each element. To actually do this, you do need those ID values set, otherwise you can't use the constraints because you can't identify those objects on the screen. Okay, so once that's done, the next thing I actually want to do is create some icons for the buttons. So let's select a vector asset, and I'm going to choose a +1 to add to the first button. So that will be the +1, click OK, and let's just change this to white, and we'll set this to 48 dp, or we'll change the name to 48 dp. Okay, so this is the first time that I've tried to change the color here, so I'm just going to update my preferences to allow Android access to the screen, and I just need to now restart. Okay, I've just restarted. Let's try that again. So new vector, and let's find the +1 and just all, and OK. And now I can actually choose the white and choose, and we'll also update the name again to white 48 and just change the actual size. Okay, next, and finish. So we want to create a couple more, so we'll just create one for the minus. So again, new vector asset, and we'll find the negative. We'll just choose the negative one, and then we'll just update the name to match the first one that we created. So we'll just remove exposure. We've got neg1, and we'll also change this to white, and the name will be a 48. And again, we'll update the size, we'll leave it to white, and next. And finish, and then we want one more for the reset. So again, we'll create a new vector asset, and we'll choose, I think this is reset, or is it reset, or is it auto? Is it refresh? Let's have a look. Ah, there we go. So it's auto renew, and we'll change the name to white and 48, and we'll change the size again. We'll leave the color white, and next. Finish, and then we'll just update these buttons now with the images that we've just created. So what I actually want to do here is create a drawable top, and we'll select the add that we've just created, so +1, and then we just want to position where that's actually going to appear in that button. So to do that, let's first just add all the icons to all the buttons. So we'll just copy that drawable top, and we'll also choose the negative, the reset rather, for the center one, and just paste that again into the bottom, into the last button, and we want to choose the negative, or the -1. So we'll just select that. So once that's in place, we can actually position the files, or position the icons rather, because we want those to be in the center. So to do that on each button, we'll give a padding of 25 or 15 dp. So that should just bring it into the center. Do I want to reduce that maybe to 14? Let's give that a try. Does that look good? Yeah, 14, 15. Let's just copy that down to the next one and the last one. And the final thing that I actually want to do is, to wrap this up, is add an on-click event for each button. So let's just add on-click, and we're going to put in add. For the middle one, we're going to add an on-click event for reset, And for the last one, we're going to do a minus. So this really kind of wraps up. So let's just put in minus for the onClick. This wraps up this first part. We've got the layout. The next part is to actually start building out our application logic, which we'll do in the next video.